is where I think of as we're really starting to dig in and learn the pieces and parts of health coaching, those elements. There's really 3 parts, and they are wrapped around, mindfulness, awareness is wrapped around them. And the parts are the process of coaching, which we're going to teach you, the skills of coaching, which you're going to learn here as well. And I am going to start today with the coaching partnership. And so you're going to see this visual Venn diagram, is that what you call it? I don't know. You're going to see this diagram over and over again. And today we're going to try to cover the majority of 2, partnership and skills. I was going to say, don't forget, you're my slide turner.
I know.
All right. So coaching partnership, what is that? Well, it's really an equal relationship, and you've heard this. We're going to repeat ourselves over and over. Mm-hmm. It's an equal relationship between you and your client, and you have shared roles and responsibilities, and this is the foundation of successful coaching. This eliminates the hierarchy. So you're not above them. They're not trying to please you or do things that you've suggested to make you happy or meet your goals. No, you're not the expert. You're not serving as the expert in this role. They are the expert on themselves. You'll be the expert on the process, of course, but they're the expert on themselves. And this is different than most helping relationships. And honestly, most of the people who take health and wellness coaching come from other fields of helping relationships. And so it's a little bit of a transition to go from someone who really is kind of your patient to now you have clients. And we call them clients because patient does imply some hierarchy. And even though I know that maybe therapists don't call the people they work with their patients, but there is a level of hierarchy there. And that's what's gone with health coaching. That again, you understand that the client is the expert on themselves. They've got their own goals. They've got their own action steps. All of that, they determine that. Autonomy, for them, you always respect their autonomy. Also, again, you guide the process. You will facilitate the process. They guide the content. You're again going to be non-judgmental, open and honest. You're going to recognize them as individuals. They're going to come to you with their own issues, their own concerns, their own emotions, their own experiences in life, their personal preferences. All of this is going to shape the coaching experience. I had two clients one time, exact same time. I won't tell you their names, but I will say both their names started with an S. And they were back-to-back days. And on the first session or 2, I really was kind of confusing them. And after we got through the visioning, the values, we got through all of that, they became very clearly different people. So because they have very different backgrounds and experiences and all that, even though their names started the same letter and they even looked alike. They could have been cousins. They weren't, but they could have been. You're also, as the coach, going to always hold this belief that the client's ability, that they have an ability to succeed, no matter what. You always will carry that with you, and they'll feel that. They will feel that. In coaching, you'll read this in your book if you hadn't already read it, but the coach's certainty is greater than the client's doubt, and you're going to hold that throughout your entire relationship with them. You're going to believe that inside of every client, they have everything they need. Everything they need, and together, you and they will figure it out for them to accomplish what they want to accomplish with you. You're going to serve as their champion. You're going to encourage them and support them in all their new behaviors and whatever action steps they set forward that they want to accomplish. And you are going to always, always, always emphasize learning. Learning throughout the process. And you'll hear this again and again. You can go ahead and change it. Again and again, that we do not ever talk about failures. You're going to have clients come to you saying that they failed, they didn't do what they accomplished that week or whatever, but you're going to come back to it's a learning experience for them. They didn't fail, they just learned something about themselves that doesn't work. And that is valuable information to have. Your trust and rapport, this is going to build over time as you work with them. When you first start out, session 1 is a little awkward. I'm going to be honest. It's a little like nervous, and I'm always a little nervous, and I feel a little awkward at the beginning of session 1. And as you go through session 1 to, honestly, after the very first part of session 1 where you do the visioning and the values assessment, I guess you'd call it, with them, I do feel like that's where it really begins. They really begin to start trusting you because they start sharing some very deep information about themselves with you. And then you're constantly building this rapport. I want you to think for a minute of a person in your life who you know has always believed in you. You think of a person who has always, they know you can do it. Whatever it is you want to do, they are on your side. They're like, yep, you got this. How do you feel about that person? Yeah, I see some heads nodding. Yeah, that's who you're going to be. That is who you're going to be as the coach. You're going to be one of those people in that person's life. You're going to always believe in them. They're going to feel it. They're going to see it. They're going to hear it. And they're going to feel that way about this relationship.
Yeah, I think, well, I'll just jump in.
Yeah, do, please.
So often they come to you feeling very defeated because a lot of times by the time they get to a health coach, they have tried on their own or they have tried through various means and they do have pretty low self-efficacy. They have very low confidence. And just to, even from day one, have someone with that mindset of, you know, you absolutely have this and you have everything you need inside of you right now to be successful. And so it does make such a difference when they feel that from their coach.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, this is going to be an environment where they feel safe and they feel accepted no matter what. And that is an empowering place for a client to be sitting. That's an empowered environment to be sitting in for anyone. And so that's what you're giving to them. And this will allow for better connections between you two. It's going to create a space where the client feels comfortable being vulnerable with you. There are going to be tears shed with clients. Not every single one, but it's going to happen. So go ahead and be prepared because it gets intimate and it gets vulnerable. And it's because they feel safe being that way with you. And this is going to foster their ability to grow and learn more and more and more about themselves. Another way we build trust and rapport is through the listening, the effective listening that we do. We always like to use the acronym WAIT. If you're in a coaching session and you realize you've been talking a lot and the acronym comes to mind, WAIT, and that stands for Why Am I Talking? Once you get past session 1, now session 1 you'll do a lot of talking because it's front loaded with housekeeping and all of that sort of stuff. But once you get past that, your client is going to do the majority of the talking. You will pose questions, you will do reflections of what they're saying, but by and large, your client will be doing most of the talking. And when that happens, you can listen for the whole. You get to hear the whole big picture. And by being able to hear the whole picture and not thinking about what's next or not thinking about how it relates to your life and telling a story about yourself, because as a coach, you won't be doing that, you will be able to hear things in one session that you can bring up in a later session that will be very impactful for that client. And again, I think we mentioned this last week, but some of it you'll get it because you're listening, but some of it you might get it because you wrote it down right after in your notes. And before you hold this session, you go back and you read your notes. And so you're like, that's right, they said this. And the moment comes where you get to bring that back up. So you've heard the whole story, you've made notes about it. So this listening and this effective level of listening that you're going to do is going to help build the trust and rapport as well. Another thing you're going to do as the coach building this partnership is mirroring. You're going to posture the way they do. You're going to mirror their emotions and their energy and their speaking style. And I don't mean their accent. Please don't try to come up with a Robbins accent. That's me. That's a Robbins accent, because that wouldn't be genuine, but a genuine mirroring. So if your client is in a excited about the week manner, you're going to come in with an excited about the week manner. If they're real calm and chill, then you can be calm and chill with them. So you're going to mirror what you're picking up on with your client. Another thing, building trust and rapport in the partnership, is you're going to have unconditional positive regard for your client. This reinforces that you're on their side. You're completely accepting of them regardless of the situation, whatever their current situation may be, whatever they tell you. Just unconditional positive regard. And I'll say it again in my slow manner, no matter what. Clients, again, we said this earlier, I'll repeat it, encouraged to learn from what they call failures. It's in quotes on the slide because we don't call it that. We call it trial and correction, not trial and error. It's not an error. So a client decides that they're going to start walking, and they get up at 5 a.m. to do it, and they come back the next week and they've only done it 2 days and they wanted to do it 4, and they're totally distraught. Or maybe they just did it 1. They're like, oh, I failed. I was terrible this week. I did horrible, or whatever. I just am so tired. I don't go to sleep until 1, trying to get up at 5. And they call it a failure, but what they've really done is they've learned something about their life and their schedule right now, and that 5 a.m. is not going to work for them, and that's okay. They've just learned something that helps them take a step in the right direction. So this is a lot of, jump in if you want to, Beth.
Yeah, well,
I'm going
to add something. To
okay,
that
well,
I just read.
It's a. I think of it as personal research projects, even that clients have that they're doing with themselves. So it is good to not make your goals as a client, so that you can learn what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when I'm with my clients and they do feel defeated and they're like, oh, I didn't do the thing, and I tell them, that's great. If we didn't know what we didn't do, then we would never know how to change it. And so there really are no failures in coaching. They're just learning opportunities. And, I just read recently, success is nothing but all of our failures put together. And it's so true. It is success. Success is just taking everything that we've learned and we're putting it together, and that's what creates success. And so that is the mindset that we really are encouraging. And it's fun to see how quickly it takes off. It doesn't take long to kind of get into that mindset shift. And you'll see you have personalities that are a little bit more negative Nelly than others, yet you pick up on that really quickly. So you kind of learn, who needs to hear what. And that's the beauty of what we do, is we get to decide what we reflect back to them and what they hear. However, it really it's refreshing. And they do pick up on it pretty quickly. And even ourselves, you think, oh gosh, and then it's like, nope, what did we learn today? Some days I learn a lot, let me tell you. However, so I just wanted to share that. I thought that was a pretty cool quote.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I hadn't heard that. That's the first time you've told me that. Okay, other things, again, as you know, judgment, criticism, acting disappointed, or even speaking disappointment, all hinder motivation. Definitely something we're not going to do inside the coaching realm. You can do that with your kids while you're raising them if you want, but not with a client. And also, you're going to highlight their strengths and acknowledge their successes. And you're even going to pull out strengths from one area. So you might see and hear that a client has a strength in, I don't know, like they're really great at being organized or something. And so you're going to notice that and later come out and say, well, you really have a strength in being organized and getting yourself organized. How could you use that strength in this area to help you move forward. And so you're going to highlight those strengths for them and point them out. And sometimes clients will be surprised, like, oh, yeah, I am pretty good at that, when they really hadn't even noticed it themselves, but you've picked up on it from working with them. And so you're going to acknowledge those and point those out. This also encourages exploration in other areas. So you're going to be constantly using those when barriers come up and trying to help a client move past a barrier using the successes that you've seen with them. Empathy and sympathy. Let's talk about that for a minute. This is kind of a big one. Empathy. This is a respectful understanding of another person's experience. Empathy will help drive connection. Sympathy does kind of the opposite. Sympathy, you feel sorry for them and you begin to maybe even go to the point of pity or something. So what we're looking for inside of a coaching relationship is empathy. This is being able to see it through their eyes. You might not have a shared experience. You might not be feeling the same emotions that they're feeling, but you can understand it. Maybe they're feeling some sort of fear or whatever. You've never been in that situation, but you know fear and you understand how you feel when you feel afraid or when you feel regret or something. So the emotion is understood, but it's not your own. This is what we're talking about when we say empathy. And they have lots of questions about this on the National Board exam. Let me tell you, the difference between empathy and sympathy and scenarios of a coach showing empathy or sympathy, and you picking out which one is the appropriate one the coach should be demonstrating and which one the coach should not be demonstrating. So it is one of the major foundations of a strong coaching relationship is being able to empathize with your client. Sympathy is being there on an emotional level, having shared feelings. The client's feeling sad, and you also are in there feeling sad with them. And this can interfere with listening. I'll give you an example. I was coaching a client whose mother passed away, and suddenly, unexpectedly, and my mom had died from a heart attack. It had been years before, but in that moment, I shifted right into feeling sympathy. I felt the grief, a wave of grief come over me. It lasted not long, but it was there, and I recognized I am feeling sympathy in this moment, and that's okay. It's appropriate. It's gonna happen. It's okay. You don't want to coach from feeling sympathy and coach while you're feeling grief and in that pit of sadness with them. So it creates a shift in the coaching balance, and you start giving out sympathy and feeling really sorry for them and that sort of thing, and you don't want to do that. Okay, I have a video that I want to share with you real quick. It's just a couple of minutes. It's animated. You'll probably recognize the voice.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
We're back. I just want to make a point. I usually say this before, but sometimes in sympathy, when we start feeling the emotion that the other person is feeling, it is painful for us, and we do want to offload it. And that's what in the video they're doing with the, well, at least, because that's a way to offload the pain that we're feeling because we are over-identifying emotionally when we're having sympathy. And I'm not saying sympathy doesn't have its place in the world. It does. Get in there with your best friend and feel the feelings with her. But with your coaching clients, empathy is where you want to stay as often as you can. That's the place you want to be, is empathy.
Yeah, it could be tricky. And again, it's not to say that sympathy, there isn't a place. If you have a client that comes in and says, you know, I just lost my mother. Of course, we are going to, I am so sorry to hear you've lost your mother. There is a place. It would be weird if we didn't express sympathy in that situation. It's that we don't want to get into that mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you have been trying and trying to lose weight and you just can't do it. You know, that's more of that. We just kind of want to leave those I'm sorry's out versus this must be very difficult for you. What a tough situation to be in. So we're just kind of removing that I'm sorry mindset and just kind of getting in there with them like, wow, you know, how troubling.
That's hard.
Yeah. Must be really hard. So there is just this fine line between empathy and sympathy. And again, nobody wants to be felt sorry for, right? Like how often do we find we don't even tell somebody something because we're like, well, I don't really necessarily want them to feel sorry for me. I'm just gonna not even talk about it. And so we don't want our clients to ever feel that way. We really do want to stay in that empathetic mind. And you know, that is, sympathy is when we start working from the heart.
Right.
You know, we want to kind of keep our emotions out of it and really just let that client be with their emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to give them the impression that we think they're weak or inadequate in any way.
Yeah.
So staying out of sympathy. Okay. I want to make a clarification here in two things. I didn't approve this with you first, Beth, so forgive me if I overstep here.
No.
But when you go take the national exam, they're going to talk about, there's going to be questions on directing a client, and you're going to answer the questions in the way that you never really direct a client. You will help facilitate the process and things like that. You don't give direct instructions to a client. You don't say, hey, stop. Oh, you think sugar's bad for you? You should quit. Let's go cold turkey starting tomorrow. You don't do that. And don't answer any questions like you do that. But in reality, when you are coaching, there is some directiveness to coaching. Some degree of it. I mean, we're going to use assessments. We're going to use a wellness assessment and have them use this tool. And you're going to use this tool that is ours, it's KGR's, but you'll have a similar tool probably that you'll use. And the tools are directive in nature because they're going to ask questions and the client has to answer those questions. And you are going to ask questions of clients in the session. And those questions are going to direct a client towards a specific line of inquiry. You're going to share your observations that you're seeing. You're going to call out trends that you see with your client and actions. And I mean, I remember one client, every time I said a certain phrase from my hometown, I saw her body language change. And so I kind of called it out. And so you're going to call things out. I mean, in a very kind way, of course, but you're going to call these things out and draw attention to them. And that is directing them in a particular, to a certain degree. You're going to sometimes make suggestions. They're going to ask you for them. Some clients are going to say, hey, well, can you help me with, do you have some resources? And you're going to say yes, and you're going to give them those resources. That is being directive. So let's talk a little bit more about the different levels of directiveness and where you want to be in coaching in terms of directiveness. Okay, so when you're new coaching, I went to the extreme of being non-directive, like never give a direction at all, never try not to even give out resources. It was drilled into me. And so anyway, it sounds like an oxymoron, but client-centered directiveness actually does work. And it is on a continuum, being from where I started as a new coach of no, trying to get my hand on the screen here, no direction to telling somebody to quit sugar cold turkey. So there is a continuum, and we as new coaches do find ourselves usually on the very non-directive side. But I don't think that's where great coaches end up landing. Not that I'm saying that I am at a great coach yet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on trying to be a little more directive. I too am a 9 on the Enneagram, and so I am a peacekeeper and don't want to give too much direction. So this is what the continuum looks like, and you can see somewhere in the middle is where you will be yourself. Mm-hmm. Not too directive, or then you're looking like a consultant. You can go to the next slide because there's details there. Or not too non-directive. So this is where I started. I wasn't sharing my observations about them. I wasn't calling things out. I didn't make any suggestions at all. Even if they asked me for it, I was a little hesitant. But this doesn't challenge your client. And part of what you want to do as a coach is you're supportive and all the things, but you also do want to challenge them in the ways that will help propel them towards their goal, what they want to accomplish.
Well, and I'll just interject. Within that directiveness falls the coaching process. So
Yep.
we are directing that coaching process. So
Yes.
it can be kind of a touchy word when we're in the world of client-centered, self-directed. However, again, if we don't have a little bit of direction, then we're going to be talking about Aunt Sally and how she went to the grocery store and all this. And, so there does need to be some direction there. And again, even within the direction, the client's going to lead how much direction they need.
Right.
You have the Aunt Sallys in your life that need a little bit more direction versus the people that come to you and this is what I want and I want this now. And they actually have never had the opportunity to be autonomous before. And you will find that they need very little direction and they thrive on that. So again, everything falls on this wonderful spectrum of, oh, hey, don't tell anybody what to do, but tell somebody what to do.
Right.
It's this fine line that we kind of toggle between. And what Ray's talking about on the exam, and this is really important, you're going to have questions that are like, tell your client to blah, 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 or suggest to your client, blah, blah, blah. And that in their eyes is being overly directive.
Right.
And that's going to fall in that category that they really don't want you in. So just kind of keep that in mind. It is a continuum, and you're going to kind of learn those buzzwords, and we'll talk about those buzzwords so that you have them down pat. So when you go take that exam, you kind of know their buzzwords. Yet also appreciating, to some degree, this just isn't a cup of coffee. We're not just all kind of hanging out, having a great time, talking about Aunt Sally. There does need to be some level of directiveness because we do want this to be effective for the client.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other end is the overly directive coach, and that's more of an expert. That's the doctors telling you, go home and do this and do this and do this and don't do this. They're providing solutions And I mean, it's out there. Coaching, there's some coaching out there that is have ready to go wellness plans. You probably see them advertised to you in the Instagram feeds and Facebook feeds and stuff, but that is not this type of coaching. So we want to stay somewhere in the middle, and I put the extra slide in to show it again at the end here, is to go ahead to, yeah. So you're going to be somewhere in the middle, and even with each individual client, where you are in that, you'll figure out where you need to be with that, with each client. Just know probably when you first start, you'll probably be on the non-directive side a little too much maybe, and go ahead and start giving yourself permission to move over in the center a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll see, it's interesting because we see so many different people that come in and take our class. And so it's hard when you are in that, particularly the medical field, where it is your job to tell people what to do, to take that hat off and put them in charge. Because all we know is that they, as an audiologist, they come to me with hearing loss, and it is my job to tell them, do they need a hearing aid? What are we going to do with this? How is this child going to succeed in school? So everyone does look to you to be the expert, and that's wonderful. You are the expert in that situation. However, when we are health coaching, we aren't the expert. That mom knows that child far better than I'm ever going to know that child. So when we sit down and create a plan together of how can we get this kid to wear this hearing aid, now then we start to move some mountains. So again, when you just change that lens just a little bit, you can really get far. And same with coaches. We have some that come in that have been coaches and they have done certain things, and it's really hard to back away from, oh, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to eat or what that plan is. And it gets easier. You'll catch yourself, on either side of the spectrum pretty quickly. So,
Daffy, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, I wanted to add that as I have less experience in actually coaching than your two amazing instructors, and I've seen them both coach, and I'm learning. Really learning, and my job was just that by the time it got to me, they wanted an answer, so I told people what to do. And so I actually was told, good thing I have good self-esteem, and I knew the instructor, which was not either one of these gals. They said something about me and this other guy being pretty much the worst at that, about being too directive. So when I really started coaching, I went the other way, trying my best not to, but you find a balance. And I guess I just want to say, and I know you guys said it, but it's so important to find the balance for yourself. And you get that innate ability to read your client the more you work with clients. And so you will discover how's the best way to do that. But I personally had to work really hard at that.
Yeah, but I do think too, thank you for saying that, Daffy, but I think some people just have a personality that's a little more directive. And you do, Daffy. And that's one of the things.
I think that was good.
Yes.
Was that nice? Yeah.
It's one of the things I love about you. And so I think you, in your coaching with clients, would be maybe a little more on the, like, it comes across more genuine coming out of you. If I try to be directive, that doesn't sound like me. I'm not directive. I'm more like, well, what do you want to do? So I think we have to be true to ourselves as well. So if your personality is a little bit more of a directive personality, that's okay. You might be a little closer on this side of this continuum. And I think it's very important that you be you as a coach and be genuinely yourself within the directive continuum as well.
Well, I think as long as we're always appreciating it's their goal, it's their idea, it's their plan, the directiveness, you'll find that spectrum of, again, guiding more of the process. We're never going to tell somebody what to do.
Right.
We're never going to tell them what the best next step is. However, we do choose, and we're actually going to talk about this in our next set of slides, we do choose what they hear back from us. So the directiveness looks a little different than what we traditionally think of as directing someone as to
Right.
what they're going to do.
Right.
When the directiveness falls into place is when they have just told us all of these things, we're now choosing, what do I actually want to reflect back to them?
Right.
What is important in this conversation for them to hear? And what would maybe be better if I don't actually reflect that back? That's when we start getting into,
Right.
there are a lot of positive statements there. I'm really hearing some things that are going to be effective in their ability to even choose where we want to go. And so, again, directiveness looks a little different than what we
Right.
think.
It's not the same
Right.
definition.
However, there does need to be a little bit there, and that's where we're guiding. And in the world of motivational interviewing, you hear it more as guiding. They're going to use the terminology guiding versus directing. So you've got guiding and following versus non-directive and directive. So the language changes depending on kind of what modality you're in. So when you're in a motivational interviewing world, it's going to be called guiding. And so there is effective guiding, and that's us. You know, again, we're on the journey with them. We haven't said, okay, awesome, good luck, I'll see you at the top of the hill. You know, we're there. They're driving the ship, but we're the co-pilot, so we're equally involved. So that's where the directiveness comes into play.
Yeah. And you can even ask, I think of some of my questions as being directive. Like sometimes I'll let something pass by, and sometimes I'll say, well, what did you like about that?
Yeah.
And make them answer more questions in the direction of where they want to go. Yeah,
Right.
so even what question you choose can be a little directive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, also within the coaching partnership, you have roles and responsibilities. And as the coach, it is your job to determine the coaching structure. And by that, I mean, now, you won't do it in isolation. You will solicit input from the client, but the length of your sessions, the number of sessions you're going to have with the client, what the setting is, whether it's in person or virtual, phone, ultimately, you are responsible for all of these. So, of course, you're going to get input, like I said, but you're responsible for these. Also, you are going to facilitate the process. And I think of it as 5 stages. You've got the vision and values, which is stage 1. You've got the assessment, focus, and readiness, stage 2. 3, the goal setting, the action planning, then the action period where they're actually doing the things, the first round of things. And then in stage 5 is maintenance. Now, these are not linear. I want to make sure to say that. That's why little arrows on the diagram are going in all the directions, because with a client, it's going to jump around back and forth, and maybe it's linear. It's possible it could be, but generally it's not. It comes back. You might come back and get back into, let's reassess your readiness for this with a client or something. And they will sometimes accomplish their first action step or 2, and they're ready to take on something different. So they want to go back to the planning stage with you and that sort of thing, just depending on how long the client stays with you. Generally, for me, my clients are with me for a few months, and I see them weekly. The longest I had was one guy stayed with me for a couple of years, and he really was ready to move on, but he just didn't feel like he was ready to move on. And finally he was. But with you, yours is a little different because the corporate work you do, is different. But anyway, as the coach, you will facilitate this process.
And you'll see this a lot. Like we're going to break this entire graph down step by step as we go through our coaching cycles.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Also, of course, as the coach, you will honor confidentiality always. You will follow through on every commitment you make. If you say you will text them tomorrow, then text them tomorrow. Don't let a single commitment that you make slip. I did that. That's why I'm sounding strict about that. I screwed that up with one of my clients and felt terrible about it. And I feel like I lost a little bit of rapport with them by forgetting to do something I said I would do. Also, as the coach, you'll want to walk the walk. You get an opportunity to do that even within this class, because you're going to be the client 2 times for 2 full rounds. So walk the walk as a coach. Go ahead and most of you already are, and that's part of the reason why you're interested in this, is you are already on some path of self-improvement and learning more about yourself and that sort of thing. But continue to do that. Also, part of your responsibility as a coach is if there's discord or conflict, for you to address it as the coach. As it occurs, go ahead and address it. Even if maybe you didn't address it in that session. Sometimes I'm the kind of person who I have to think like, wait, was that a little, just what was going on? The energy shift there, and I need to think about it, and then I want to address it the very next time when we meet again and come back. So that is something that you're going to want to address. And also forever, if you are going to share a recommendation or a suggestion or an idea, make sure you ask permission before you do it. Don't just cold hand out those.
Yeah.
All right?
So mirroring is really just kind of reflecting back what you're seeing, feeling. So if Ray were to come in today and I picked up on maybe she felt a little defeated, and she was kind of down and sad. Well, I'm not going to come into that coaching session and, oh, Ray, I'm so excited to see you. You know, so it's just kind of focusing on like what that person is experiencing with you. If they're really excited about a goal that they've met, an action step that then we're going to be excited with them. You know, we're not just going to kind of be back in our chair and, you know, so a lot of it is, you know, if they're leaning forward, we're leaning forward. You know, even just really mirroring that posture of what's going on. So you're just kind of as if they're looking in a mirror. Now, a couple of things with mirroring. We don't want to mirror angry feelings. So you'll kind of like, you know, if they come in angry, we're obviously not going to be angry back with them. So there are, you know, we don't always mirror everything back, but it just kind of increases that connection when they know that you are tapping into their state of energy, their state of mind in that moment.
I think it's kind of a natural thing we do when we are one-on-one with someone and we're talking with them. We tend to mirror each other. I mean, I've read studies about this, and I've thought about it. I'm like, yeah, it is kind of true. I will sort of pace my voice cadence with the person who I'm talking with, or they'll pace with me. Like we end up connecting in this way that I think of as mirroring, where we join together in this one-on-one connection. So it kind of happens naturally without you really having to think about it or make an attempt to do it.
I mean, again, you're going to feel, we're not going to unnaturally be mirroring something.
Right.
You know, if they scratch their nose, we're not scratching our nose.
Right.
You know, again, I agree with Ray. I think it comes naturally. And when you are sitting face to face with someone, you'll feel it, or even kind of pay attention to the next conversation that you have.
And
it does come natural.
yeah, we just do it with other humans
do.
when we're one-on-one.
Yeah, we do. We do.